Tonight, America decides who will become the next president. Results are coming in as the world anxiously awaits a winner.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina reporting tonight from Washington.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our special coverage of election night here in the United States. You are looking live inside Donald Trump's headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. He is expected to address his supporters shortly. Kamala Harris, by the way, will not be speaking tonight. Her campaign officials making that revelation just a short time ago. Let's take a quick look at the results right now. Donald Trump leads the race to 270 electoral college votes. That, of course, is the majority he needs to become president. Right now, he is sitting at 248, meaning he needs still about 22 more electoral college votes to get to that stage of 270. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, has 214. Trump has won 2 of the 7 swing states, Georgia and North Carolina, both in the Trump column. The Rust Belt states have not yet been called, as well as Arizona and Nevada. The Republicans have also won the Senate, but the House is still up for grabs. Let's go to CTV's Geneviève Beauchemin, who is in West Palm Beach, Florida. And Jen, so far a very good night for Donald Trump. As we mentioned, the Republicans are now back in control of the Senate, and he has won 2 of the 7 battlegrounds, and he's leading in the rest of them, the remainder of the 5.
Certainly a lot of broad smiles and big hugs in that room tonight at the West Palm Beach Convention Center, where people are still waiting for that speech. There had been some word that the motorcade had left Mar-a-Lago. That's where Trump was earlier in the evening with some of his close advisors, watching the results come in, and we're told being very jubilant about what was happening on the front, on all the states and on so many levels here. And that motorcade seems to have left Mar-a-Lago from some time ago. People in the convention center have been expecting him to speak for some time there. Perhaps he's still working on that victory speech, or perhaps he's awaiting for more results to come in before he does speak to people there. But certainly a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of rounds of applause over and over again this evening, as people say that it looks very good for their camp, and they're very hopeful. In fact, they've been talking about perhaps even sweeping the 7 key battleground states that had been on the table for several days, that everybody had been talking about, where it would be very, very close. Now they're saying that perhaps they could actually sweep them all.
And again, a live look there inside the headquarters, Donald Trump headquarters, where we are hearing that he will be speaking shortly, and we are watching that, and we will bring it to you as it happens. Geneviève, thank you so much. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Melvin is outside Harris headquarters at Howard University in Washington, D.C. And what a shift in tone over the past few hours, Joy. There are times you and I have spoken this evening where I could barely hear you because there was so much excitement and enthusiasm, and now significantly different.
Yeah, pretty much everyone has cleared out. In fact, we're going to get kicked out pretty soon. When Cedric Richmond, the campaign co-chair, came out and said that Kamala Harris would not be speaking tonight, but they felt that every vote should be counted, and they will wait until tomorrow, it became pretty clear that they saw the direction this race was going in. Fox News has already declared former President Trump president, and declared that he has already won Pennsylvania. So, yeah, it's kind of like being on the Titanic. You kind of feel that mood just dropping. In fact, one of Kamala Harris's surrogates, Mark Cuban, who is a Shark Tank judge, actually congratulated Donald Trump on Twitter, saying saying you won fair and square. Congrats to Elon Musk as well, because, of course, Elon Musk using X, formerly known as Twitter, to help Donald Trump's campaign. So pretty much everyone's kind of accepted what may be happening. The path for Kamala Harris, it's just not there if she doesn't get the blue wall, and it doesn't look like that's going to be happening.
All right, Joy Malvin at Howard University here in Washington. Let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos. And if you go back throughout the night, there were tells, right? You looked at a state like Florida, for example. Not only did he win that state, but he won handily, cementing his leads from 2020 and building on those. You look at a battleground state like North Carolina. This is a state that has a growing number of minority voters, a growing number of suburban voters. This was a state that Kamala Harris was supposed to capture. She did not capture it, which obviously does not look good for her right now.
Yeah, both Georgia and North Carolina were supposedly in play. And in the North Carolina case, especially so, we saw a lot of resources from the Harris campaign poured into that state. There was thought, for example, that Hurricane Helene and the impacts of that could also lend support or impact the Harris campaign overall. And that didn't happen. And you talk about those tells and you look back over the last 4 or 5 hours, and there were lots of them. Everything from the performance in Florida outperforming 2020 to the strongest performance of a Republican in a generation in New York. Even though they lost the state, he performed very well in Manhattan. To the popular vote, a Republican has not won the popular vote, I believe, in 20 years in the United States. So this isn't just like a path to victory through the Electoral College. It's also reflected at this juncture in the popular vote as well. So the tells are numerous, the Senate flipping as well. Like, it's hard to see the narrative going any other way other than his way at this point.
Which, again, we're still waiting. But, if this trend holds, if he is successful, if he is victorious tonight, he's got a strong mandate for his legislative agenda, especially with the Senate now flipping back to Republican majority.
Yeah, we'll have to wait conclusively what happens with the House. But going into this, the Republicans held a majority there, too. And I think that's a particularly important construct for Canadians, because the kinds of things that Donald Trump has to do on trade are not all by presidential decree. They need the support of Congress, for example. They have to get through the Senate. The new NAFTA, Kamala Harris was one of 10 senators who voted against it. Like, the Senate needs to approve if we do renegotiate NAFTA, something like that. So if the Republicans have control of all three aspects of the government, then he is able to push through the kinds of things he wants to do on tariffs, on trade, on defense, on security, like all of which could not impact us in Canada. Like, you can't overstate how much the impact would be on us, and he'll have a clearer path to doing that.
And he would have no impediments. Vassy Kapelos, thank you so much. We will check back with you a little bit later.
You bet.
I'm going to take you back inside Trump headquarters. Here's another look right now in West Palm Beach, Florida, where we are hearing reports that Trump is about to come out and address supporters. You can see the podium right now, his supporters gathering in front of that podium. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris, her campaign officials, saying earlier this evening that she will not be speaking tonight at Howard University, where her supporters were gathered. Let's bring in CTV's political analyst, Scott Reed, right now. And Scott, by any measure, this has been a very good night for Donald Trump. He's increased his share of the popular vote, his support among non-whites. We were just talking about, Vassy and I, the fact that the Senate had also switched hands, now is in Republican majority. So certainly a lot of momentum behind Donald Trump tonight. And nothing conclusive. We have to be careful. But a good night overall so far.
Well, you have to be responsible. You're an anchor. I'm an analyst. I can say anything. So let me just pick up on that point. I think that when you start to look at the scale and the strength of this victory, and if you're an ally, I used to work for a prime minister, and I think to myself, what must be going through the minds of those in the prime minister's office tonight? And you have to start to ask yourself about, the distorting and silencing effect that a victory of this scale will have. So, for example, we're going to see Donald Trump withdraw American might and military power from the war between Ukraine and Russia. He's going to abandon Ukraine to Russia. Now, you would think that a G7 leader like Canada would stand up and say, that is wrong. You should not do this. And then they'd be joined by other NATO leaders and other G7 leaders. But the prime minister will get advice saying, don't do that. We have too many interests at stake. This leader is too powerful to voice that kind of objection. He will take it personally, and he will then take it out on us when it comes to trade talks on Canada-US or on the importation tax that he's mused about putting across the board, this big new 10% tariff. So you can't speak out as forcefully as you would like on, say, the war in Russia or other measures that Donald Trump might make. You have to husband your political capital with him. You're going to have to be supplicant. You're going to have to be like Mark Cuban and send him a congratulatory message. It's going to have a distorting effect. And that's not just going to be something that our prime minister has to calculate. It's going to be a calculation that will be made in Britain and France and Italy and every capital around the world.
So, Scott, Canadian officials have said that they're ready for either scenario. If you are the prime minister tonight, what are you thinking?
You're thinking you're scared, because the whole strategy that we've been pursuing is a rational, conventional strategy, that you would surround the president-elect with countervailing forces, that you would talk to border state senators who might be Republicans and have some influence with them, but who would be sympathetic to Canada's causes, that you would talk to advisors and former ambassadors, and you would speak with Congress people who might have his ear. But he has no constraints. None of those people will be willing to march into the White House and tell him what he does not wish to hear. He rules over the political apparatus of not just the Republican Party, but all of America now, with absolutely no challenge. And that's going to make implementing our surround strategy much more difficult.
All right, Scott Reed, always appreciate the analysis. Thank you so much. Let's get to those results and do a quick recap right now. Donald Trump is leading the race to the White House. 270 is the number needed to win in the Electoral College. The total is 538. We know that Donald Trump right now has 248, so he needs 22 more Electoral College votes to get to that bar of 270. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, has 214. As we told you moments ago, Trump has won two key swing states, Georgia and its 16 Electoral College votes, and the state of North Carolina and its 16 Electoral College votes, having a lead there of about 176,000 votes over Kamala Harris. There are still 5 battleground states to come. But again, as we mentioned, Donald Trump is leading in all 5 of those battleground states. And the Republicans, as we mentioned, have won the Senate. The House, however, is still up for grabs. We will keep an eye on Trump headquarters, but coming up after the break.
Just went there to scare them, but I guess they shot back with a bullet. He was shot in his tummy here in the side.
The bold break-in by armed, masked men. A large crowd gathered there at Trump's headquarters at West Palm Beach, Florida. He is expected to address his supporters shortly. Kamala Harris, meanwhile, will not be speaking tonight. That information coming from her campaign officials earlier this evening. Just a quick recap. Donald Trump leads the Electoral College right now, 248 to 214 in the race to 270. Electoral College votes needed to win the White House. Trump has won 2 critical states, Georgia and North Carolina, 2 of the 7 battleground states. The Republicans have also won the Senate, and the House is still up for grabs. We will get back to our U.S. election coverage in just a moment, but first, here's what else is making news right now in Canada. Startling security video captured an armed home invasion north of Toronto. One of the suspects fired at a neighbor who attempted to intervene with his young son following closely.
He was not even aware that his little boy was behind him when he went and knocked on the door. So by a miracle, the child survived because the bullet could have hit the child.
Seconds later, the armed intruders ran out the front door. Neighbors say thieves recently targeted the same house. The 39-year-old man who was shot is expected to survive. Also near Toronto, a public order emergency was declared as police broke up another night of tense clashes between Sikhs and Hindus at places of worship. Waving sticks, throwing debris, and brandishing what appears to be a sword, hundreds of protesters at a Hindu temple came face to face with police as officers tried to contain the violence.
Indian Army to come here to Canada and storm those temples.
This person can be heard calling to storm Sikh places of worship.
If they said that one, it is not acceptable, and I, along with my fellow Hindu friends, I condemn that.
These latest tensions between the two religious groups comes off a weekend of violent protests. A Toronto driver who raced past his streetcar and totaled his Lamborghini has been handed a 2.5-year prison sentence. The man was found guilty in the 2021 crash that left a passenger with life-altering injuries. He was going nearly 3 times the speed limit when he crashed into 2 parked cars and the streetcar. Today is the first full day a critical trade artery was shut down, locking out more than 700 unionized workers at ports across British Columbia.
We have Black Friday merchandise coming in. We've got Boxing Day merchandise coming in. It'll affect us quite a bit.
Experts say the stoppage affects virtually everything from food, retail goods to exported commodities like lumber, coal, and cars. Wages and automation are among the pain points. An estimated $800 million worth of trade travels through BC ports every day. And still ahead, we are awaiting Donald Trump to address supporters in Florida. He currently leads the U.S. election 248 to 214 in the Electoral College. He needs 270 to win. Here's a live look right now inside Donald Trump's headquarters in West Palm Beach, Florida. We are hearing that he is expected to address his supporters momentarily. Kamala Harris will not be speaking tonight. That message coming from campaign officials at Howard University, also here in Washington. Donald Trump leads 247 to 214 in the race to 270 Electoral College votes to win the White House. Trump has won the states of Georgia and North Carolina, 2 of the 7 battleground states, and we know that he is leading in the remaining 5. We will get back to our U.S. election coverage in just a moment, but first, here's what else is making news right now at this hour. Queen Camilla has pulled out of her planned engagements this week after suffering a chest infection. The 77-year-old wife of King Charles is resting at home while she recovers. No further details of her illness have been given. Buckingham Palace says that they hope the Queen recovers soon in time to attend this weekend's Remembrance events. It's November 5th, but the shovels are coming out early after a serious blast of wintry weather hit southern and central Alberta. Snowfall of up to 25 centimeters was great news for skiers, but not so much for drivers. Weather alerts are in place from Medicine Hat to Swift Current, Saskatchewan. Meanwhile, in southern Ontario, a very different story. Temperatures at Pearson Airport near Toronto soared above 22 degrees, breaking a 65-year-old record. The average maximum temperature for this day is typically 9.5 degrees. Cooler weather is expected later this week. And a pair of iconic ruby red slippers worn by the legendary Judy Garland in the 1939 Wizard of Oz film are up for auction 19 years after they were stolen.
Tap your heels together 3 times.
In 2005, someone smashed through a display case at the Judy Garland Museum in Minnesota and swiped the sparkly shoes. Their whereabouts remained a mystery until the FBI recovered them in 2018. And still ahead, the latest results in the U.S. election live from right here in Washington. We're going to take you straight to West Palm Beach, Florida right now, where we know that Donald Trump has arrived to speak to his supporters. And by the way, we've been talking about Pennsylvania all evening, and Pennsylvania has just been declared a win for Donald Trump. So Donald Trump taking that key battleground. Let's listen in.
Thank you very much. Wow. Well, I want to thank you all very much. This is great. These are our friends. We have thousands of friends on this incredible movement. This was a movement like nobody's ever seen before. And frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time. There's never been anything like this in this country, and maybe beyond. And now it's going to reach a new level of importance because we're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy? But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president. And to every citizen, I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day, I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body, I will not rest until we have delivered the strong, safe, and prosperous America that our children deserve and that you deserve. This will truly be...
Donald Trump there addressing a crowd of jubilant supporters in West Palm Beach, Florida, and promising to heal the country after winning the election and on his way to a victory. That's our newscast. Special coverage of the U.S. election continues on ctvnews.ca. Good night.